Dragons may rub their cream burritos in order to get pregnant by using magic to transmit DNA from uterus to uterus. But how did I come up with all this information for the mating manual? And does any of this actually impact the lore of my mangas, The Devil's Deal, The Night of Slaughter, and Deep Stalker Crow, which all share the same world? Whenever you're making a world for your mangas, it is always important to ask the question, why? Why do I need to know that Eastern-style dragons have a dong so long that a train could fit it on? And their reproductive system almost resembles a chicken. Why do you need to know that a Western-style dragon's dong is the size of a person that you could literally use it as a sleeping bag? Why does a Western-style dragon female cervix look like a dragon's mouth that can literally decapitate you? Because when we talk about relationships, anatomy is the single most important factor, because anatomy dictates how society forms, which dictates how culture forms, which dictates how individual actors will perform. For example, let's look at The Devil's Deal. Selma is a human woman and her husband is a human man. And just like normal humans, they are driven by emotion and sex. They are driven by what their body tells them is appealing. And their reproductive system was what led to Selma having kids with Yuso, thus getting them married. And her reproductive system, Ira, is what resulted in Selma's upbringing. And the culture around that reproductive system, aka sex, is what dictated how perception of Ira, Selma's mother, was going to be handled. And let's look on a macro scale here real quick. We can see that Yuso is called out on a disturbance for Luna and her husband, Pim. And if you notice this little kid on Pim's back, that's his daughter. She's a human. But his wife is an orc. And because she isn't living in a raccoon, which is effectively like an apartment that orcs as a whole can go live in and be in an orcish culture, which is much more equipped to handle mental health issues regarding orcs, especially when it comes to anger management. So because she has chosen to live with him outside of their species raccoon, who is more equipped to handle her as she's going through these traumas, we have this issue of her having an outburst again, which results in the guards coming and taking her away because she is an adventurer. And if we go to Deep Stalker Crow, where we know Deep Stalkers have a dragon-like fear aura that they cannot turn off, which means most of society is afraid of them, thus they do not have companionship outside of their own species. And in this latest chapter, we find he is banging a blind woman. And we know that Deep Stalkers are considered infertile. With the lack of sight not most likely being the cause of this issue, it raises a big question biologically. How is she able to be around him? How are they able to have this relationship? So as a world builder, whenever I come into these questions of how can anatomy play an integral part in characters' interaction, it naturally leads to more opportunities to build a story around. And so in a fictional world where I have the ability to literally come up with any type of reproductive system possible, it provides me with a lot of freedom to really build on to how species interplay with each other, from relationships to politics. Like, did you know that because forest elves have no ability to reproduce outside of their own species, that when it comes to adopting an elven child, that you pretty much have to go through the Elven Cultural Association. You have to take classes. You have to get their approval before you can actually adopt an elven child. And because the Cultural Association only gets its power because it lobbies different governments into putting these policies in place, we once again go from anatomy affecting to society to affecting culture. That ultimately leads to affecting the individual. As far as how I come up with all these ideas, I pretty much just look around the world and see what's going on. How does nature reproduce? Because nature is weird. And I literally half the time end up saying, that's kind of cool. And I combine two things, make it new. And of course, I consume media from other sources and then take inspiration from those and be like, that would be a cool reproductive method.